Every day of the year, somewhere on Earth, people are engaged in a bitter struggle with winter. 48 million square miles of the planet are shrouded in snow and ice. A tornado may pass in minutes, but this wild weather comes to stay, gripping cities, entire countries for months. Winter's tale is one of struggle and adaptation. For winter is the enemy we are least equipped to fight. Winter is a season of contradictions. Here, for once, is severe weather that is greeted with delight. Weather we can touch, can even play with. But its beauty is deceptive. In the coldest places of the planet, winter simply changes the rules. How the landscape looks, how materials behave, how we live our lives. "3,000 miles east of Moscow, high in the Siberian mountains, they know all about winter and its silent power. For this is Oymyakon, the coldest town on Earth. When a man dies here, it takes a team of gravediggers 3 days to dig his grave. The air temperature is minus 50 degrees centigrade, 30 degrees colder than a domestic deep freeze. The ground is permanently frozen hard to a depth of 8 feet. The gravediggers must soften it with bonfires before it can be dug. They can only work in 20-minute shifts. Any longer, and their flesh will freeze. Oymyakon is in the far east of Siberia, far from the warming influence of the oceans. In this high, landlocked valley where cold air settles, it's caught in an unenviable spiral of cold. From October to April, every year, night and day, the temperature is permanently stuck below freezing. In midwinter, on their warmer days, it will climb into the minus 40s. What little heat reaches Oymyakon from the weak winter sun is reflected straight back into space by the snow. Such conditions have guaranteed Oymyakon's unhappy claim to fame. In 1938, the temperature fell to minus 71 degrees, the coldest temperature ever recorded. Today, it is minus 46.
В 60 градусов почти невозможно дышать. То есть, если вы лицо не прикроете, дыхание, то вы не сможете просто дыхать, а там уже, если там пробежаться, то есть это вообще уже невозможно, просто 60 градусов. Да, собака, моя собака была у меня, она просто выскочила и задела языком бочку и прилипла. То есть уже пока мы бегали за кипятком, она просто рванула, оторвала пол языка себе, конечно. Ну, она же не человек.
Oymyakon exists to ensure that the Trans-Siberian Road is kept open. The lorries are the town's lifeblood and its lifeline. But every trip the drivers make is a journey along a knife edge. A lorry's chassis may snap. Its tires may shatter like glass, both metal and rubber made brittle by extreme cold. Along this frozen highway, a breakdown can be fatal.
Все уехали, его бросили, на машине уехали, его оставили. Он ехал, у него раз бульдозер и все, сломался. А он в кирзовых сапогах зимой. Ну и пошел пешком домой. И чуть сбился с дороги. Там пробовал, руки уже замерзли. Пробовал костер разжечь, никак не смог. Веток наломал, а спички зажечь не может. А потом вообще, видно, в панику кинулся куда-то в сторону, убежал вообще. Упал и все, и ноги хорошие отломали. Морозил, короче, половину ног сняли, почти под самое колено.
Да, под колено.
Да.
Across the centuries, those who have tried to defy winter have reaped the consequences. Viking settlers once came here to Greenland and built farms and churches on the fertile coast. Then the climate grew colder. Just 2 degrees, but that was enough. The Vikings failed to adapt their way of life to the increasing cold. They lived exactly as they had done in Norway, ignoring how their Eskimo neighbors survived the winters. Gradually, they grew sicker. By 1500, they were 5 whole inches shorter than their ancestors. By 1540, there was no one left alive. Now all that remains are the ruins of their settlements, a cautionary tale for those who underestimate the power of winter. History's mistakes are repeated. When Hitler invaded Russia, he was gambling on a mild winter. What he never anticipated was the earliest and coldest Russian winter for 250 years. The human body was not designed for such extreme cold.
How the bitter weather has eaten into the Nazis is clearly shown in these studies of frostbitten, frozen prisoners of Hitler's army of dejection.
The machinery of our civilization, our weapons of war, are useless in the snow and the frost. The 20th century turned by a dictator from the sky. In Omyakon, they survived the Russian winter, but it's a constant, careful battle. Nothing left to chance, with the town's truck drivers on the front line. Every winter morning starts the same, with the perilous business of thawing out the lorry's frozen diesel and brake fluid. Once it's running, the engine will not be switched off all day. The cold will drain a battery in moments.
Это самое главное, отличается холодом. То есть минус 50, минус 60 градусов. И это минус 50, минус 60 очень на большом протяжении идет времени зимой. Сама жизнь на севере просто, в честности, у нас в Омяконе, она просто замирает зимой. То есть там полностью останавливается, можно сказать. И все кидается на то, чтобы выжить.
In winter, even the commonplace proves impossible here. Pens won't write because the ink freezes. A coin held in the hand will freeze to the skin. Breath turns instantly to a cloud of crackling ice crystals, something they call the whispering of the stars. Survival depends on a rigorous daily cycle. Every morning, tankers fill up with water from the hot springs, nature's one concession to Omyakon. The tankers deliver the steaming water to the boiler houses, which supply homes with central heating. The boilers have to be continually stoked, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. From October to April, the fire never goes out. With the ground frozen so hard, there are no taps or drains. Domestic water is delivered to barrels that must be emptied immediately before the water freezes. It's an unending daily cycle, demanding constant work, constant vigilance. Like Omyakon, Braemar in the Scottish Cairngorm Mountains lies in a dip where cold air settles. The coldest temperature ever recorded in Britain was recorded here. Minus 28 degrees. A heat wave in Omniacon. Every weekend, thousands leave their centrally heated city lives to enjoy winter in the mountains. But the sublime winter face of these mountains hides weather which is both fickle and dangerous.
It can change dramatically within half an hour. If you're walking at one side of a mountain, the weather can be coming from the other side and suddenly engulf you in a matter of minutes. A snow blizzard can come through the mountains like a train, and suddenly you're just caught in it and you've absolutely no warning that it's coming at all.
The wind was howling, there was a whiteout. I lay there for 16 hours in minus 39 degrees.
Without a bivy bag to get inside, or without good quality waterproof clothing, then you may be looking at 20 minutes survival time before you go unconscious. Once you've reached that stage, unless you're rescued very quickly, you're not going to survive.
By then I was exhausted, trembling with the cold. The wind was blasting round me. I was becoming blind, I could hardly see.
And people start to have all sorts of hallucinations, and they start to feel different things. Maybe they've got a big rucksack on their back which contains everything they need to survive: the spare food, the spare drink, the spare clothes, everything that's going to allow them to survive. And they think, oh, this is far too heavy. If I can just get rid of this, I'll be able to walk better. And so they dump the rucksack. And I've seen us on rescues actually going along looking for someone missing, and we'll find a rucksack packed with all the equipment, and we can't understand why it's lying there. You go on a bit further and you maybe find a cagoule, and a bit further than that you find a pair of boots, and then eventually you come across the body of the person who's died.
I must have been so close to death because I left my body, and I was above the snow tops, walking in a lovely blue land with trees, flowers. It was beautiful, and I felt calm and safe. And then back to the snow again. I saw figures and dogs, and I thought, oh, hallucinating again. When they shouted my name, I heard somebody shout, are you Jackie? And then I realised they were real.
Jackie Greaves was found just in time. After 2 days in the bitter cold, she was suffering from frostbite, and hypothermia would soon have killed her. The human body has few defenses against the cold. When body temperature drops just 4 degrees, the flow of blood to the brain and extremities is cut. Flesh freezes and hallucinations begin. Another 10 degrees and we will certainly die. A high price to pay for some fun in the snow. But these same winter conditions can even help people survive. Cross-country skier Andy Wilson was trapped by a blizzard high above Braemar. For 3 days the search went on in weather so severe the mountain rescuers could only stay out for 40 minutes at a time before they had to return to shelter.
By the end of the third day, when the teams were coming back off the hill, you really began to feel, well, it's impossible to survive up there. I was out on the first day as well for the full day, and I knew what it was like coming back in. I thought, well, if someone's lying out there exposed to the elements, there's just no way they can survive at all.
But Andy was surviving, for he knew how to use snow to save his life.
I was out of the wind, but the wind and the snow then combined to actually protect me. It almost built a coffin around me. Stayed there for round about 46 hours. It was like trench warfare. You keep your head down and you're going to live. Stick your head out and try and be brave, and the chances were you're going to die.
When the weather cleared and Andy staggered out, he had survived a record 66 hours in a blizzard.
When I got picked up, I actually thought I was all right. I was actually envisaging going to the car and being able to drive home, which considering when they got me to hospital, they were saying I had frostbite, I had hypothermia, I was dehydrated, I was exhausted in general. The snow, which was making me cold and caused the problems, it could easily have killed me, and it would have killed me another day. But it allowed me to live for the days that I was there.
Snow is a much misunderstood material. Peter Marchand is an expert on winter conditions. For him, snow is never a problem, it's a passion.
It's truly one of nature's most interesting materials, I think. It's always changing. From the moment a snow crystal alights on the surface of the snowpack, it's changing because that delicate little snowflake is altogether too delicate to last very long. They very quickly begin to self-destruct.
English has only one word for snow, but the Eskimos have 200. One for snow that sticks to trees, another for snow that has compacted hard, a third for snow with a rough surface, yet another for snow so deep you need snowshoes to walk in it.
We just tend to beat snow into submission, and once we've conquered it, we play on it. But in other parts of the world, snow is a very useful material.
When snowflakes lie on the ground, they bind together. A heap of them becomes a solid mass so strong it can be hollowed out to make a snug house. So much air is trapped between the snowflakes, it's 25 degrees warmer inside the snow house.
We didn't always have the technological advantages that we do today, and we had to make do with natural materials, and snow was one of the more useful of all for getting through the winter.
It was this knowledge that enabled the Eskimos on Greenland to survive while the Vikings died out. It also saved Andy Wilson's life.
I'm infinitely more comfortable out here than in any motel or hotel I've ever been in. It's a personal thing, I suppose, and it has a lot to do with preferring to be a participant, I suppose, rather than just a spectator. Hey, look at this. Isn't this great? Tell me snow isn't beautiful. What's happening here is that the snow crystals are being transformed into round ice grains, and they're bonding at their points of contact, and it's imparting great mechanical strength to the snow so that it behaves like a plastic. It's just flowing slowly over the edge of this old stump here. That's just beautiful.
A century ago, a farmer from Vermont in the United States began a lifetime of catching and photographing snowflakes. It was his meticulous cataloguing of crystals that first hinted at snow's infinite variety. His name was Wilson Bentley, and he came to be known simply as the Snowflake Man. Every snowflake that has ever fallen is unique. It starts life in the clouds when moisture freezes around a nucleus, a grain of salt, a speck of pollution. Exactly what the crystal freezes around is the first thing that will determine what shape that snowflake takes. As the snowflake falls, the air gets warmer or wetter or dirtier. As conditions change, so the shape of the snowflake changes, sometimes into patterns that are quite unexpected and unrecognizable as snowflakes. There are 10 basic snowflake shapes. Only those that grow at around -10 degrees are the classic star. In Oymyakon, the air is so cold and dry that the few snowflakes that fall are tiny and shaped not like stars, but like needles. The warmer and wetter the air, the larger the snowflakes will be. As they fall, they may clump together to make bigger flakes. The largest ever measured were 5 inches across. In 3 places in the world, and only 3, a unique kind of heavy snowstorm is caused where Arctic air blows over water still warm from the summer. It's called lake effect snow. In early winter, these rare lake effect snows almost bury the people who live downwind of Lake Erie in the American city of Buffalo.
Good morning. It's Breakfast with Bowerly. There is only one story this morning, and that is snow, specifically lake effect snow, and we have been dumped on by Mother Nature.
There's only one way for Buffalo to welcome in 1995.
Truck 11.
A good snowstorm. And WGR News Radio 55 was
Actually,
there.
I'm optimistic. I don't think it's going to come, but they say it's going to come. So we have to go with the weatherman says.
In a snow-white gown.
7, 8, 9.
rugged individuals.
Taking 7.
7 right now. Eldridge has 7.
Brought in 7 additional crews, so now they're up to about 33.
Exclusively on Buffalo's official winter weather station, WGR.
When they predict snow in the forecast, I never know when I'm going to get out of here. I show up at 7. If I get home at 4, that's great. If it's later, what can I do? There's really no way to know what time you're going to get out of here, you know. The weather does predict what you're going to do. The weather calls the shots.
Yes, we've had about 6 to 7 inches at the airport.
Yeah, lake effect snows are very unique because they affect very localized areas. One part of the city can be under sunny skies, while a few blocks away your neighbors are in near zero visibility conditions with heavy snow and blowing snow.
But the rates of 1 to 2 inches an hour, if it stays in the same areas for any length of time, we could get more than a foot in some areas.
Another 4 to 7 inches not out of the question before dark. I guess it's just as important to forecast where the snows are going to be for the public as where the snows are not going to be. We do not want to panic people by closing down an entire city when one portion of the city has no snow whatsoever. So it's a very unique forecasting challenge.
It really takes people a long time to get their snow legs, you know?
Yeah, and then there are the four-wheel drive people who
like me.
drive at 65 over slush and hydroplane into other cars.
It's really slippery out there. Really slippery.
Well, let's stay here together tonight.
Done. I've never had that kind of proposition. How nice. No, I want to go home.
Oh, okay. Well,
if I can make it home.
Then I will go home too.
Don Paul has had enough caffeine to keep Buffalo awake for the next week.
On a day like this, it's very difficult for a meteorologist who enjoys violent weather phenomena or snow to really sit still. And you get wired, and I couldn't have slept much last night anyway. I slept an hour and a half, and in fact, even if I didn't have to come in early this morning, I would have been wide awake. And most of my friends at the Weather Service are the same way. Is high, and we look upwind across the Erie National Weather Service radar scope.
The lakes produce very narrow bands of clouds, and these bands of clouds may be as little as 2 or 3 miles in diameter, but they contain very heavy amounts of snow, and they literally can dump on the city at times as much as 2 or 3 feet in a 12 to 24-hour period. That is very significant snowfall, and it's going to cause a lot of problems for people.
Good morning, Buffalo, and it's a wintry one out there this morning. You'll need extra time to get where you're going.
It's one of those days. The snow is piling up outside. The kids need to get to school, and you need to get to work. The last thing you want to deal with is your old, worn-out garage door that sticks and bites
Especially up around North Buffalo, you try to travel up around, I don't know, say the 190 along the river down to the South Arkansas area.
Every 10 minutes, we checked it. It's important today.
Well, at this radio station, we have a programming idea called Weather on the Tens, which was specifically designed with Western New York in mind. And Weather on the Tens basically means we do the weather forecast at the top of every hour at 00, 10 past, 20 past, half past, 40 past, 50 past, and then again at the top of the next hour.
Basically, all the shops repair
shops in this area. Probably today, they can't do any more than they're doing today, and probably a lot of them will be backlogged for at least 3-4 days just from what's happening today. Everybody always remembers the blizzard of '77. They'll never forget. If you were around for it, you'd never forget it. It was too astonishing to forget it. I mean, it was just like something major in history because it hit everywhere, not just one place, not just one little town or suburb, but hit everywhere. '77 was a nightmare, and it was probably the longest couple of weeks of my life. I went to work on a Friday and I didn't get home for about 2 weeks.
So much snow fell that day that 13,000 people were stranded in cars and offices. It took 19 days to get the roads clear again. Such massive quantities of snow can fall because moisture in the clouds that would make just 1 inch of rain in summer will make 10 inches of snow. The blizzard of '77 changed the way Buffalo prepares for winter.
The manager of a radio station I used to work at, from the day of the blizzard onward, always kept 7 clean pair of underwear in his office because during the blizzard he went 1 week wearing the same pair.
Everything is suggesting it's going to move right back through the city during the rush hour. I don't like the looks of that.
Just to the south of us here, it looks like it may be steady state all night, so we may be looking at more than a foot of new snow between evening and tomorrow morning.
Blessed Sacrament Church bingo tonight at 7:30 closed. The Carmery Kenmore Dance Studio closed. Chautauqua County Department of Social Services Foster Parents Orientation in Dunkirk is canceled. Divine Child Williamsville, the 7 p.m. prayer group canceled. Doodlebug's Art Academy afternoon and evening classes. National School Bus Service, the 1-hour drug and alcohol meeting set for 6.
While it's going on, it seems like there's no end to it. You go down the street and it'll keep snowing, it'll cover up right behind you. When it finally stops, when the snow moves out of the area, and you finally get the city cleaned up. You see that? I thought we were going to have them on our plow. When it's finally over with, that's when you feel like you've accomplished something. Up until that point, it's all just steady driving all day long. It looks so serene in the morning when before man gets to it, you know, it's so picturesque, you know, and then man starts coming out in it, and that's what makes it a hazard. If you could just leave it alone, it would stay just as beautiful it was when it started.
Snow holds a particular place in our hearts. We long for snow to fall, to give winter its true character. A winter without snow is hardly a winter at all. We forget the chaos, the disruption. In our memories, we see only how the familiar was made magical, how snow gave us for a moment a time out of time. Those unforgettable snowy winters of our childhood, they date our lives. From Braemar to the West Country, 1962-63 was the coldest and snowiest winter of the century. It is for many in Britain a benchmark winter, as 1977 is for the people of Buffalo. For isolated communities on Dartmoor, it was like no winter before or since.
Nobody was prepared for it, of course.
I mean, this was 62 Boxing Day, and it went on till March. Well, I mean, the roads were just closed. They were not open. There was nothing. And the good thing about it was everybody had to abandon the car. There were no vehicles. So you went back in time, to the Victorian time. People walked everywhere.
I don't remember any noise at all. It was so silent. And birds, there were no birds because the little birds died very quickly. But the whole place looked so different. I mean, there were places where there weren't places before because there were huge drifts. It was another place, really.
The village shop was run by a Mr. and Mrs. Bellamy. I can see it now. In the corner of this shop, up on the top shelf, was an enormous tin of corned beef. It had been there ever since I remember, 2 or 3 years at least. And it was gone within days. Somebody bought it, it was gone.
The local shops sold out of sunglasses quite quickly because people were having trouble with their eyes due to the glare.
They flew in a helicopter with supplies, which was great fun. I mean, you know, it landed in the field just over there. And they brought flour and bread and butter and meat, which was absolutely frozen solid. We had to cut it up with a bow saw.
With all that snow, a lot of our normal activities inside the prison weren't possible. Many people who would never have been out, never been allowed outside the walls in normal circumstances, were out there because it was fairly obvious that there wasn't much future in running off. Prisoners who normally would have been kept well inside the prison were actually out digging and stopping for occasional good-natured snowball fights with the local youngsters.
The snow brought people together. You pass people, you talk to people. People knock on the windows, you pass by. Come in for a cup of tea, and you do. It was friendly, it was wonderfully friendly.
It's definitely a time in my life that there was before 63 and there was after 63. And it's out here when you talk about snow, you always talk about 62, 63. Always. It must have been hell for an adult, but it was absolutely great to be a child then.
The memorable hardships of that Dartmoor winter are daily facts of life in Omyakon. Supplies always have to be flown in here, but when the temperature drops to -55, it's impossible for the twice-weekly planes to fly. Omyakon is then almost entirely cut off. For Sasha, the airport manager, and his wife Sveta, who came here as a new bride, winter means constant anxiety to protect their children, who are particularly vulnerable to the cold. Winter does mean one saving, though. With the temperature in their porch at -50, there's no need to keep food in the fridge. Milk is sold in frozen blocks, which Sveta keeps in the porch with the rest of the food.
Масло. Мясо. Все эти продукты заносятся домой, оттаиваются, имеют нормальный вкус. С осенью рыбачили, ловим рыбу, брикеты, ее делаем и морозим.
Вообще здесь проблема, конечно, с едой. Не с едой, а однообразие пищи идет. Ну, в основном мясо едим, но от этого никуда не денешься. Ну, тут фруктов, овощей, конечно, недостаток.
Одни рога остались от него. Ну, к весне, думаю, съедим их.
Ну, тут такие, например, у меня появились дети. Тут такие нюансы, например, зимой надо обязательно за детьми смотреть, чтобы они там... Вот это первое правило, что я не забываю, что, не дай бог, языком она там подойдет к железке там или дотронется рукой.
Even the poorest child here is dressed in furs. Synthetic material just tears in the cold. To the children, the precise temperature is crucial. A few degrees make all the difference. The cold is always exhausting, but at minus 45, they can safely play outside for 20 minutes. At minus 50, any skin exposed to the air freezes in 60 seconds. At minus 55, young lungs are shredded by the cold, and no child is allowed outside.
It's a steel and concrete building. The walls are a foot thick, and the glass windows are triple paned, 2 layers of glass and an outer layer of bulletproof Lexan to protect against the ice flying off the other structures. Now, Washington's called the home of the world's worst weather. We have a combination of wind, fog, and low temperatures that are unique.
At the meeting point of 3 storm tracks, Mount Washington is a meteorological freak, a fragment of the Arctic, just a plane hop from New York. In 1934, the world's strongest wind speed was recorded up here, 231 miles per hour. Hurricane-force winds are routine. In winter, they get 250 inches of snow, 3 times the snowfall of Buffalo. For the scientists and weather observers, it's an Arctic laboratory where they can study the wildness of winter weather and test everything from jet engines to goggles. The work they do here helps keep airports open and human bodies protected in the wintry places of the world, from Braemar to Buffalo. Every day, a weather report from New Hampshire's very own bit of the Arctic is broadcast by Marty the engineer, a cult figure with local TV viewers.
Well, Lou, here on the summit, light snow has been falling all day, but so far there is no significant accumulation. Now we are still in light clouds. It's 14 degrees and the wind is west at 55, gusting to 63 miles per hour.
Approximately 60% of the time, The summit is among the clouds. We're isolated here. When we're inside the cloud, as we may be for a week at a time, there's very little contact with the outside world. All we can see is about 100 feet or so before the fog envelops any objects or other buildings or structures. So it's almost like being in a submarine. There are 3 or 4 of us here typically for the week, so we live together, we work together, we do our weather observations and scientific work right around the clock, 24 hours a day, and without much contact with the outside world. If you need a lot of outside stimulus with the sights and sounds, you'll get cabin fever here very quickly.
When the fog clears, it has left a unique winter fingerprint. These delicate feathers of rime ice are frozen cloud droplets, sculptured by the wind.
It can go from fog and cold and rime ice depositing all over everything in just a few minutes to the sun coming out, and then we can see well over 100 miles. The awesomeness of the weather and the power of nature really strikes home here. And what we do is record it, and we watch it, and celebrate the changes in the weather.
Watching and celebrating is not enough for the managers of the ski resort of Vail, Colorado. Where other communities adapt to winter weather, here they aim to make the weather adapt to them.
The whole town of Vail is created around snow. We look at snow as being white gold.
To keep the white gold falling, Vail employs Larry Jonested. His job is one of the rarest in the world. He tries to make it snow.
That was fun. Yeah, we got some more weather moving in for tomorrow. Like to plan on having the generator turned on about 7:30.
Snowboarders and skiers think that snow's our toy. You know, it's time to play, okay?
Very good Friday morning to you from Vail, Beaver Creek, and Arrowhead. It's January 27th, and at Vail today, the mid-Vail base is 35 inches, 44 inches on top, and 2.5 inches of new snow. There are more than 4,000 acres of powder and packed powder for you to ski, and all 25 lifts to get you there.
Where's the best snow this morning? The sun.
Best sun?
Well, the snow, therefore.
Probably the Mid-Vail area. What we do primarily is we are the guest information system on the hill. We are responsible for getting the guest any and all information that they need to make their skiing experience more enjoyable. Yeah, our corporate philosophy, our mission statement is making vacation dreams come true by consistently striving to exceed the guests' expectations. Doesn't that sound great? And I mean, that's really what we live for.
Designer snow doesn't come cheap. Larry's attempts to convert the moisture in the winter clouds into snowflakes costs Vail $100,000 a year.
Mother Nature does a wonderful job here with giving us a lot of snow. However, that isn't enough.
Larry's burners launch millions of specks of silver iodide up into the clouds, where they provide extra nuclei for snowflakes to form around. It's called seeding the clouds, and Larry thinks it increases snowfall by 15%. Lake Erie gives Buffalo its own peculiar brand of snow. The clouds Larry works with make a different brand altogether.
Here in Vail, we have a really, really dry atmosphere. It's the snow is like crystals, very, very soft crystals. I've had 6 inches of snow on my vehicle before. I walked out in the morning and gone, it's gone. It's very powdery. We call it champagne powder. If you throw it up in the air, it floats like little sparkling crystals you'd see in wine. It's a beautiful thing.
Skeptics say cloud seeding doesn't work, that the weather can't be bent in the service of the dollar. But Vail certainly won't stop trying.
Make these people extremely happy. Bye-bye.
Morning, grooming.
Hi, how you doing?
Hi. Need a report?
I will take a look at that, thanks.
All right.
This is our mountain, and we take a tremendous amount of pride in that. Image is everything.
Image is everything.
Back in the land of endless winter, the patient daily cycle goes on, chipping drinking water from a frozen river. Image is nothing in Omyakan. For people here, the weather's power is not something they expect to control. It's a day-by-day dictator they recognize, accept, and are even proud of.
Ну, конечно, север влияет капитально на характер, то есть мужественно закаляет, наверное, человека. То есть человек становится крепче, добрее, там, ну, помогает. Ну, вообще он как бы вам тут все тоже воспринимает, только уже сам по себе. Даже вот, допустим, ЧП случается в поселке. То есть все люди, независимо, диспетчер, он кочегар, там, сантехник, то есть все полностью там от мала до велика выходят. Потому что если эту аварию не устраним, вот эту маленькую ошибку, то есть мы все просто замерзнем.